As we approach the start of training camp, which is actually coming up next week, we've got Media Day a week from today. And of course, the talk around the league as well as around the Bulls community is what's going to happen with Damian Lillard? Where is he going to be traded to? Is he in fact going to be traded before the start of the season? I personally still think he's going to be with the Blazers on opening night and will be traded at some point during the season. But for Bulls fans, of course, is whether or not the Bulls have a legitimate chance at landing him, especially after rumors have started heating up that the Bulls are being considered as a dark horse in the Damian Lillard sweepstakes. But as intriguing as those rumors are, and we can debate about what a trade for Dame would look like, how he would fit with the Bulls, and whether or not it makes sense, I think what's being forgotten in all of this is just how much all of it is impacting Zach Lavine, who once again has found himself in trade rumors with the Chicago Bulls. No matter what the guy does, no matter how he performs, no matter how loyal he's been to the organization, there has always been this sliver of doubt, at least this perceived doubt, that this front office isn't fully committed to Zach. And I want to dive into it a bit further, and it's what we'll be talking about in this video. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Now, as much as a lot of the rumors surrounding the Bulls trying to get into the mix for Damian Lillard are pure hearsay at this point and speculation, nothing has been confirmed, and of course the front office has never come out publicly and said that they are actively pursuing Damian Lillard in a trade. Whether any of it is true, the fact of the matter is Zach Lavine, who has been with the Bulls for the last 6 seasons, their max player, their franchise player, has found himself in trade rumors as it relates to discussions involving Damian Lillard to Chicago. This, of course, is in addition to the rumors at the start of the offseason before free agency about how the Bulls were gauging interest around the market for Zach Lavine. Casey Johnson of NBC Sports Chicago even confirmed that the Bulls were taking calls and having preliminary conversations with teams to see what the interest level was on Zach. There was also the rumor swirling around that the Bulls were trying to trade into the draft to get the number 3 pick from Portland. This, of course, being before Dame requested a trade, and Zach being a part of that deal to help land the Bulls the number 3 pick, while the Blazers would get a ready and established star in Zach Lavine to help build around Damian Lillard. If you remember, at that time, reports were coming out that the Bulls, while they were exploring options for trading Zach Lavine, their asking price was insanely high. I believe it was Jake Fisher who speculated the Bulls would seek something along the lines of the number 3 pick, Anthony Simons, Shaedon Sharpe, for Zach Lavine. Again, this was right before the draft. Then, of course, you had last season's trade deadline, in which there were reports that the Bulls were actively engaged in talks with the New York Knicks in executing a blockbuster deal to send Zach to New York in exchange for heavy draft compensation and young players. When AK was asked about any deals that were on the table at the trade deadline, or I guess I should say at the end of the trade deadline press conference, he emphasized that there were deals that were on the table, but nothing materialized because, sure, trades could have been made, but at what cost? Which my takeaway from that was their asking price in any trade was probably too much, and they weren't going to settle for low offers. But what was more telling to me, and this really stuck with me for some reason, but when AK was asked about their commitment to Zach Lavine at their end of season press conference, and even when he was asked about the trade rumors surrounding him, he gave a very neutral, non-committal response about Zach. How he was working hard in the offseason, was working to improve himself, as opposed to simply stating, no, we are 100% committed to Zach, and we have never wavered on that point. And even if they didn't actually mean that, say they were exploring trade options, or they were unsure if Zach is the guy that they want to build this franchise around, you would think, because a lot of GMs do this when speaking publicly to the media, being emphatic about their commitment to their franchise player. Because even if you don't actually believe that, you would never want to put any doubt or speculation publicly about said player, because chances are that player isn't going to be pleased about hearing that from their front office. But either way, here we are again. Zach Lavine finds himself in trade rumors. Despite getting that max contract, despite being with the organization for 6 years, through the good and the bad, Zach's name still comes up in trade talks. And as much as we'd like to think, these trade talks don't really bother him, he's brushed it off before and has just said he's going to keep doing his thing, play basketball, and do whatever he can to get better. At the end of the day, and this is purely just based on my own observation, I feel like Zach Lavine is the type of guy where an accumulation of trade rumors, whether they're true or not, are going to have an impact on him. He strikes me as the type of player that takes these types of things personally, because look, in Zach's eyes, whether it's justified or not, is that he's earned that star level status. He's earned the respect for this organization and should be viewed as an untouchable player. The type of player that you would never even think twice about trading. Whether that's fair or not is up for debate, because I personally don't put Zach in a tier of players like Steph Curry, Giannis, Embiid, LeBron, or Luka, guys teams would never consider trading unless they demanded it. But regardless of what we think, Zach Lavine, he feels he's that type of player. A player that shouldn't be involved in trade rumors, a player that you do build a franchise around rather than try and trade for assets. Now, as far as my personal take on Zach's name continuing to come into trade rumors, I actually don't take much of an issue with it. I mean, the fact of the matter is the Bulls were not a good team last season. They underachieved, and they should be exploring all options and avenues for where to take this team, and that includes your most valuable trade asset, which is Zach Lavine. I mean, the front office wouldn't be doing their jobs if they weren't assessing the trade market of their most valuable asset, their max player who is in his prime. You can say DeMar DeRozan is the Bulls' best player currently, and I wouldn't argue with you on that. But Zach Lavine has the highest trade value on this team because he's 5 years younger than DeMar and isn't on an expiring contract like DeMar is. So the fact that the front office is taking and making calls on Zach Lavine actually gives me relief that they're doing something and simply doing their due diligence, doing their jobs. I would be more concerned if they were sitting back and not taking any calls on Zach, because Zach Lavine is not Steph or Giannis, true untouchables around the league. He's just not that type of player. The problem, though, with the front office gauging interest around the league regarding Zach Lavine, and it's really twofold, is that one, there is only so much interest you can gauge, calls you can make, take, or even offers that you can make on a player before it becomes pretty evident to the rest of the NBA that the Bulls are clearly looking to shop this guy, and they lose leverage as a result of it. Like, it gets to a point where teams are going to say, do the Bulls even want this guy with how eager they are to get rid of him? We know they've been shopping him around for months. Why should we offer a big haul to get him when they're clearly looking to get rid of him anyway? The other problem with being a little too eager to gauge Zach's trade value is things slip through the cracks, information gets leaked out, and the rumors start from there. And it's one thing you hear a brief rumor or two about a player's name being involved in trade rumors, but when it continues to happen at every trade deadline, every offseason, you have to start believing that some of it is true, and in turn it has a negative impact on the player to the point where it trickles down to their play on the court. Zach even stated this before in his end of season press conference when asked about all the trade rumors, admitting the fact that while some of it is just smoke, oftentimes you see a little too much smoke, and when there's too much smoke, there is a fire. Meaning Zach knows there is likely some truth to all of these trade rumors. And while he's acknowledged he understands that this is a business, you also can't help but to ignore the human side of this, where Zach takes it personally. And for a guy who has kind of been doubted throughout his career, being labeled as an empty stats guy, high volume shot chucker, poor IQ, not a winner, you'd have to think he's getting a little tired of this, to the point where it gets to him mentally and he starts overthinking his play on the court, and it impacts his confidence and energy on the floor. Now, hopefully, it would actually do the opposite. It would light a fire under Zach to prove all of his doubters wrong, to prove to the front office that they shouldn't even think about trading him, that he is that guy that you can build a franchise around. And hopefully you see Zach come out the most determined and motivated we've ever seen from him, and he goes out to have one of the best seasons of his career. I have my doubts on whether that will actually happen, and it's probably wishful thinking on my part, but I would obviously love to see a monster year from Zach after being involved in all these trade rumors. But let me know what you guys think, though. How true do you think some of these trade rumors are? Let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.